Three sentences you need to write in your test are three definitions of the approaches to understanding behavior. And these will also help you talk about the differences between these approaches for your test. So we think about it, the goal of psychology to try to understand behavior. Why do people do the things they do? And so let's, if we're thinking why do people become addicts, that will be my next example. I just forgot to change the slide. The biological approach is when the biological approach to understanding behavior is when researchers explain behavior by focusing on biological factors like genes, the brain, and hormones. Right? The sociocultural approach to understanding behavior, so that's its full name. It's the approach to understanding behavior. So that researches and explains behavior by focusing on social and cultural factors like our childhood experiences, environmental factors, and cultural factors. You can memorize these definitions if you like, and making flashcards for these would be a good way to study for tomorrow's test, so you know you can at least write these clear, concise answers. The evolutionary approach to understanding behavior explains behavior by explaining how it would have helped our ancestors survive and pass on their genes. Now, if we look at, say, addiction, biological psychologists would take a biological approach and they'd say, well, I wonder if there's something in their genetics or in their brain or maybe in their hormone levels that are influencing their addiction. Social and cultural psychologists would look at their social and cultural environments. Is there something in their childhood? Is there something in their social environment that is driving them towards this behavior? And evolutionary psychologists would think more about how addiction could be related to behaviors that would have helped our ancient ancestors to survive. Now that seems a little bit hard to imagine. How could becoming addicted be a good thing for survival? But if we think we typically become addicted to things that are high in dopamine. Dopamine is quite hard to get in the natural world, but dopamine is to do with drive and motivation. So it could just be that we now have these artificial drugs that tapping into our ancient systems for motivation. Right. PTSD would be another example, and again, I forgot to update my slides. Why do people develop PTSD? Okay, this is copy and paste errors all day long, Mr. Dixon, but it is 6:35 in the morning. Anyway, biological psychologists would look at the biology of the person. Is that the reason why they're getting PTSD? Evolutionary psychologists would look at how PTSD could be an understandable adaptation in the brain to help us deal with trauma. And social cultural psychologists would look at how environment, maybe what happened in our childhood, could have caused the risk for PTSD. And we get to what we've been studying, attraction. Okay, we've been taking a biological approach, which means we're looking at things like the MHC genes and sex hormones and pheromones and oxytocin to see how they might influence attraction. Evolutionary psychologists would look at the qualities in someone and think about how that could be beneficial for survival and procreation, or they would look at the qualities we typically find attractive. And a social and cultural psychologist would take a social-cultural approach by looking at things like differences in cultural preferences, so across individualism and collectivism, might look at how our preferences have changed over time and how that could be a result of things like the media and social media. So they are the three approaches to behavior. In the next video, I'll explain their key differences.